Hi, Art Noble here. I'm the author of The Sacred Female and your resident expert in sexual biology. And today we're going to talk about the orgasmic experience. Now, orgasm is a catch-all word that describes many physiological reactions that are occurring at the time of orgasm. You ask, what is an orgasm? And the answer is, well, have you ever had one? Yeah, well, that's what it is. No, not really. It can be so much more than that. Now, even we all have our own subjective opinions about what sex, orgasm, love, all these things are because of our own experience. Well, even the studies on them are subjective. Back in the 70s, they asked a bunch of college students, male and female, what was an orgasm. And when gender corrected, the bottom line came out it was a release of sexual tension. Well, yeah. Well, what's sexual tension? Is this just because we're horny? Or is it because we have desired someone for a long time and got to know their essence? I mean, yeah, the release of sexual tension exists, but in the latter case, it's orders of magnitude different. Even the studies, I mean, from what I've gathered from most of the studies I've read, there are only two things in common with an orgasm. One is specific brain activity as determined by an fMRI, that's functional magnetic resonance imaging, and pleasurable involuntary muscle contractions. Now, in Denmark, I believe it was, a lady by the name of Gert something or other did a PET scan of two couples copulating. Now, a PET scan measures glucose uptake to the brain, and at the time of orgasm, it was 0. And glucose is the energy that runs our body, a primary source. So maybe this is why the French call orgasm le petit mort, or the little death. Also, electroencephalograms will measure electrical activity in the brain, and during orgasm, the right side of the brain is lighting up with electrical activity, not the left. So all of these things are subjective. Now, getting back to our involuntary muscle contractions, even these can range from a gentle fluttering in the genitalia, or perhaps a genital sneeze, chew, all the way up to something that resembles a grand mal seizure. So there is a tremendous variety in just involuntary muscle contractions, not to mention things like male and female ejaculation. These are also supposedly involuntary responses. Um, they're caused by what is believed to be a buildup to a specific level of endorphins, a natural opiate acting as a neurotransmitter that releases the ejaculate or the emissions. As we learned in the last series of videos for women, there are 4. Now, the point is, oh, yeah, then we have altered brain chemistry that can produce transcendent experiences. I mean, we humans are fantastic, and we are so limited by what we have learned so far. And hopefully, I want to break these limitations that we have on ourselves. And second, any response that we think is controlled by our autonomic nervous system can be either enhanced or denied. Again, all from up here. We are powerful people, just don't know it yet. Now let's get back to our clinical definition of sex. Now, let's return to our clinical definition of sex as the mental and/or physical stimulation of nerve endings producing chemical signals, energy, that may result in pleasurable involuntary muscle contractions in the genitalia and other sexual responses. Now, I have a couple of surprises for you here. Number one is that we don't need to have sexual or genital contact to have any sexual response. It can all be done from up here. Now, our bodies are fantastic machines that we have no concept of their capabilities. Maybe science doesn't want us to know. I don't know. Now, number two is that some food additives that are put into foods that we eat can screw us up royally. There's one that will calcify the pineal gland, which is responsible for the secretion of DMT, which produces the feeling of being in the presence of God. And there are other food additives that will reduce our sexuality, our biological sexuality. So we have to not only be careful of who we eat, but also what we eat. Now, in this video, I'm only going to be looking at the physical aspects of our sexual performance here, our sexual responses, because it's both mental and physical. And there are probably a zillion different factors in terms of mental that go into our sexual responses. So we're just going to look at the physical. This Western diagram of the male genitalia shows with blue dots the general areas where we have specific nerve endings, and there aren't many. I say Western because the penis is shown circumcised. Further, in a moment you will see why we guys wound up on the short end of the stick. Most of our nerve endings are in the penile skin. Circumcision removes about 50% of our skin and our nerve endings. Further, it leaves a scar that becomes excruciatingly sensitive on ejaculatory orgasm. Now, I don't know if this is true for uncircumcised men or not. The glans penis, the head, is sensitive enough at this time. Now, I once thought, and this is an example of my projection, when a woman had an orgasm and said, "Stop, stop, stop," it was because she was just as sensitive as I was. I didn't know where it came from. Now, I later learned that the urge to void in some women is a precursor to their ejaculation, and not knowing any better, they didn't want to urinate on their lover. So they said stop. Notice in this wiring schematic, men have 3 nerve pathways leading up the spinal column to the brain. The stimulation of the specific areas sends signals to the brain to elicit the responses. So the response is a function of both the degree of stimulation and which nerve endings are being stimulated. Same in women. Now, if we look at just the possible combination of stimuli going through these pathways, we have factorial 3 or 6 different kinds of orgasms. Now, factorial 3 just means 3 times 2 times 1. Now, various tantric masters will say 7 or 8. But if we look at the areas of nerve endings, it can be a few more than that. So for the most part, most of us limit ourselves to what we have experienced in the past. Now, way back when, in ancient Greece, there was this fellow named Tessarius. He was walking along and saw a couple of snakes copulating, so he pulled them apart. And this really ticked off the gods. So right then and there, they changed him into a woman. Zap! He was a woman. Well, he lived like that for 7 years until the gods relented. But when they did, they left him blind so that he would never forget. And to compensate for that, they gave him the gift of prophecy. Anyway, according to the myth, one day Zeus and Hera were having a heck of an argument as to which one of them had the better orgasm. Hera says, Zeus says, "I'm a guy, so I must have the better one." And Hera said, "Silly boy, you have no idea what you're talking about." And the argument went on. So finally Zeus got the bright idea. He says, Well, I'll call Tessarius. He knows both sides of the picture. So they called Tessarius and asked him, which one of us has the best orgasm? And Tessarius said, if parts of love's pleasure are divided by 10, thrice 3 go to women, 1 only to men. And now we'll take a look and see why. Now, women are far more fantastic. I've marked the concentrated nerve-ending areas in red, and note that they have 4 nerve pathways to the brain compared to our 3. Now, the vagus nerve doesn't travel up the spinal column, but wanders around a woman's body like the path they make on a mall shopping trip. Ours has not been shown to be connected to the genitalia. You know us guys, we won't ask for directions. Oh well. Now, if we just look at the 4 pathways to figure out how many different kinds of orgasm a woman can have, 4 factorial is 24, and that's just a start. But if we look at stimulating various combinations of all 14 areas I've shown here, 14 factorial is about 84 billion different combinations. Of course, when we consider we cannot physically stimulate the A spot near the cervix without stimulating the pelvic nerves and the vaginal barrel, that would drop it down to, say, 50 billion different combinations. That's 3 a day with 4 on Sunday for about 20 years, never repeating the same one twice. But if you do, what the heck? Now, this is just stimulation of nerve endings in the genitalia. Now, some women can have orgasmic experiences with breast massage, foot massage, non-genital touching in other areas, brushing their teeth, performing fellatio, and even spontaneous orgasmic experiences. Now, the Kama Sutra recommends 3 days of non-genital erotic play after marriage and before intercourse so that we might find these areas on a woman's body. I don't know anyone who's followed these instructions, but it's never too late. Remember, each one of these female critters is different and certainly do not all respond the same way. And when they do respond, their response may be different for them this time than it was the last time. Now again, this video is only concerned with the physical aspects of stimulation. The mental aspects way beyond the scope of this video, and they are the ones that are most important. The bottom line is, for us guys, what it takes is just a different attitude, an attitude of love. And if we've got that, we've pretty much got everything. There are few people, if any, that will talk about the act of sex being a mechanism for transmitting love. And, you know, that's hardcore. Not much romance in that. But man, when you do, you'd be surprised the results you can get. Like Napoleon Hill said, the combination of love, sex, and romance can raise a man from mediocrity to the altitude of genius. Women too. So, thank you very much for watching, and you all have a great day. Bye now. All you need is love, love. Love is all you